My name is Dr. Katherine, and I am a cardiologist with more than 25 years of clinical experience treating patients across all stages of heart disease. I have walked with thousands of families through the aftermath of cardiac events, and I can tell you with complete honesty that the vast majority of those events did not appear out of nowhere. They were the final outcome of a quiet biological storm that had been gathering for years, often triggered by a handful of small, ordinary morning habits that nobody had ever flagged as dangerous. Today, I am going to walk you through exactly what happens inside your cardiovascular system the instant you wake up, why these morning hours are statistically the most lethal window for the human heart, and the small science-backed adjustments that can dramatically lower your risk starting tomorrow. To understand the danger, you first have to understand what your body has been doing all night. Most people imagine sleep as a passive shutdown, but it is anything but that. While you slept, your body was running an enormous internal maintenance program. Your brain was sorting and storing memories, your immune system was repairing damaged tissue, and your heart was operating at its slowest, most peaceful rhythm of the entire 24-hour cycle. Your blood pressure dropped, your pulse settled, and here is something most people never hear. Your blood itself thickened slightly. Lying flat and still all night, your circulation simply does not need the same force or fluidity, so everything quietly slows down. Your cardiovascular system enters a state of genuine rest. Then your alarm goes off. And in that single jarring moment, the transition from deep sleep to sudden wakefulness fires what scientists call the cortisol awakening response. Your adrenal glands flood your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate climbs sharply. Your blood vessels squeeze tighter. Your blood pressure can surge by as much as 25% in a matter of minutes, and that thicker, slightly sluggish nighttime blood now has to push through narrower vessels at higher pressure. Picture trying to force molasses through a crimped straw. That is the morning state of your circulation, and it is the precise environment in which dangerous clots form. This is why cardiologists have known for decades that the hours between roughly 6 in the morning and noon are the deadliest window for the human heart. A landmark study published in the journal Circulation found that heart attacks occur 60 to 70% more often in the morning than at any other time of day. That is not a small statistical wrinkle. That is an undeniable, predictable pattern, and it traces back to this morning biological storm your body weathers every single day. Now here is where the 30-second mistake comes in. The morning hormonal surge itself is biology, and you cannot fully prevent it. But how you respond to it is entirely under your control, and what most people do in their first 30 seconds quietly compounds the danger. The very first mistake, and I want you to think about your own routine right now, is that the alarm sounds and most people immediately shoot upright or even leap out of bed. This sudden change in posture triggers an effect cardiologists call orthostatic stress, where your blood pressure drops abruptly as gravity pulls blood downward into your legs. It feels like the floor has tilted under your feet. Your brain temporarily receives less blood, and your heart, which seconds ago was already in hormonal high alert, must now compensate furiously. It pumps harder against the cortisol surge, against the postural shift, all while your blood is at its thickest and most clot-prone of the entire day. For a young, healthy heart, this strain is manageable. But for anyone with even mild undiagnosed arterial stiffness, which affects a huge proportion of adults past 40, this combination is genuinely perilous. Stiff arteries cannot flex and absorb pressure changes the way young vessels can. So when that blood pressure spike hits a stiff vessel, it acts like a hairline crack widening on an old porcelain teacup. A small plaque that has been quietly resting on the wall of a coronary artery for years, stable and harmless, can suddenly rupture. When plaque ruptures, your body interprets it as an injury and rushes clotting factors to the spot. A clot forms within seconds. If that clot blocks blood flow through the artery, that is a heart attack happening right there in your bedroom in the first few minutes of your day. Let me tell you about Raymond, a 64-year-old retired truck driver from Cincinnati who came to me about a year ago with a story that still chills me. One ordinary Tuesday morning, his alarm went off at 5:30 as it always did. He swung out of bed with his usual energy, took 2 steps toward the bathroom, and felt the room tilt around him. He grabbed the dresser, broke into a heavy sweat, and felt a dull pressure spread across his chest that he later described as an elephant slowly sitting down. His wife called 911. He survived, barely. The cardiologist who treated him in the emergency room told him that he had been one tiny clot away from never seeing his grandchildren again. Raymond had no idea his decades-long habit of leaping out of bed, grabbing his phone, and rushing to the coffee pot had been quietly building toward that exact moment. The second part of the morning mistake involves dehydration, and I know what you are thinking. Everyone knows you should drink water in the morning. But knowing it and understanding why it actually matters for your heart are two completely different things. After 6 to 8 hours of sleep, your body has lost meaningful fluid. Every breath you exhale carries moisture. Your skin has been quietly perspiring all night. By the time your eyes open, your blood volume has dropped, and as blood volume falls, your blood becomes more concentrated, more viscous, and far more prone to clotting. Now consider what most people do next. They rush through their morning, grab a cup of coffee, which is a mild diuretic that pulls even more water out of the body, and may go a full hour or more before consuming any meaningful water at all. During that entire stretch, blood is at its thickest, blood pressure is at its highest, and the body is operating under maximum physiological strain. Without realizing it, you are maintaining the exact internal conditions in which cardiac events occur. And then, often within the very first minute of waking, comes the third mistake: the phone. Think about what truly happens when you reach for your phone before your nervous system has even fully transitioned out of sleep. You are immediately bombarded with notifications, headlines, work emails, and overnight messages. Each notification is like a small alarm bell ringing, one after another, each one further activating a brain that is already in a vulnerable, half-alert state. Your stress system, already elevated from the cortisol surge, gets a second wave. Another adrenaline release, another tightening of blood vessels. Researchers have a name for this: digital stress loading, and its cardiovascular consequences are very real. A study from the University of California found that adults who check their phones within minutes of waking show measurably elevated cortisol throughout the entire rest of the day, not just in the morning. That means your heart is quietly operating under elevated stress hormones for far longer than it ever should. Your cardiovascular system cannot tell the difference between a physical threat and a psychological one. To your heart, a frightening news headline activates the same hormonal response as being chased through the woods by a large animal. The adrenaline does not know the difference. The fourth mistake is one of the most overlooked, and that is shallow breathing in the morning. People who wake up in a rush almost always shift into what physiologists call sympathetic dominant breathing, short and shallow chest breaths that fail to fill the lower lobes of the lungs. This matters enormously for your heart. Shallow breathing keeps blood oxygen levels lower than they should be after a full night of sleep. Your body, sensing that lower oxygen, responds by constricting blood vessels even further to prioritize oxygen delivery to vital organs. Blood pressure climbs, the heart works harder. Your nervous system stays locked in fight-or-flight mode rather than transitioning into the calm parasympathetic state that protects your heart. Here is the genuinely remarkable part. Research has shown that just 3 to 5 slow, deep breaths taken immediately after waking, before getting out of bed, before doing anything, can measurably soften that morning blood pressure surge. Deep breathing activates the vagus nerve, the main highway of your parasympathetic nervous system. Picture the vagus nerve as the conductor's hand rising to quiet a rowdy orchestra. When stimulated, it sends a direct signal to your heart to slow, to ease, to come out of crisis mode. Your blood vessels relax. Pressure normalizes. The dangerous window of peak vulnerability begins to close. The fifth mistake comes from temperature, specifically from going from a warm bed into either a cold environment or, worse, an extremely hot shower. When your body shifts suddenly from warm to cold, kicking off the covers, walking onto chilly tile, your blood vessels constrict rapidly in response. This is called cold-induced vasoconstriction. In the context of already elevated morning blood pressure and already thickened blood, this added squeeze can push pressure to genuinely dangerous heights within seconds. Heart attack rates climb significantly during winter months precisely because of this vascular reaction to cold. A very hot shower does the opposite, but is just as risky. The intense heat causes blood vessels to dilate suddenly, like every gate in a wall opening at once, pulling blood toward the skin and away from the core. Pressure drops abruptly. Your heart races to compensate. For someone with even mild undiagnosed coronary artery disease, this rapid demand can trigger what we call demand ischemia, where the heart muscle is asking for more oxygen than narrowed arteries can deliver. Demand ischemia is a direct path to a cardiac event. Now I want to address the people for whom this conversation matters most urgently: While these morning patterns affect everyone to some degree, certain groups carry far less cardiovascular reserve than others. If you are over 45, if you have high blood pressure even when well controlled, if you have diabetes, if you smoke now or have smoked in the past, if you carry significant weight around your midsection, if heart disease runs in your family, or if you have ever been told your cholesterol is elevated, then you are operating with a system that has less flexibility for absorbing morning stress. Your arteries are likely stiffer, your plaque burden is likely higher even if you have never felt a single symptom, and your morning cortisol response may be more exaggerated because chronic stress, insulin resistance, and poor sleep all amplify that hormonal surge. There is a concept in cardiology called vulnerable plaque, and it is central to why so many heart attacks strike with no warning. Vulnerable plaques are cholesterol-rich deposits inside artery walls covered by a thin, fragile cap. They often do not show up clearly on standard stress tests because they do not block much blood flow on a quiet day. But they are exquisitely sensitive to mechanical stress, exactly the kind your morning blood pressure spike creates. When a surge of pressure hits a vulnerable plaque, the thin cap can crack, and a clot forms with terrifying speed. A completely asymptomatic person becomes a cardiac emergency in minutes. Now I want to shift, because I do not want to leave you afraid. I want to leave you empowered. The morning storm itself is unavoidable, but what determines whether it becomes catastrophic is almost entirely behavioral. These are choices, and choices can be changed. The protection actually begins the night before. Sleep quality is one of the single most powerful and most ignored determinants of your morning cardiovascular risk. The size of your morning cortisol surge is directly tied to the depth and length of your sleep. People who get fewer than 6 hours or whose sleep is fragmented show significantly higher morning cortisol and bigger blood pressure spikes upon waking. Poor sleep also drives up inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein and increases the tendency of platelets to clump and form clots. 7 to 9 hours of solid, consistent sleep in a cool, dark, quiet room is not a luxury for your heart. It is a clinical intervention, and one small habit almost no one practices is sipping a glass of water before bed. Not so much that you wake to use the bathroom, just enough to enter the morning with slightly less viscous blood. When morning arrives, the first 5 minutes are the most important. When the alarm sounds, resist the powerful urge to leap upright. Lie still for 60 seconds. Take 5 slow, deep belly breaths. Inhale through your nose for 4 counts, letting your belly rise rather than your chest, hold briefly, and exhale through your mouth for 6 counts. This single 60-second exercise activates the vagus nerve and softens the cortisol response. Then sit at the edge of your bed for another 30 seconds, letting blood pressure stabilize. Stand up slowly. This graduated transition from lying to sitting to standing is one of the most clinically valuable things you can do for your heart. Before your phone, before your coffee, before anything else, drink 2 full glasses, about 400 to 600 milliliters, of room temperature water. Not ice cold, because cold water can trigger an unpredictable vagal response in some people. Room temperature water absorbs fastest. Adding a tiny pinch of mineral-rich salt, no more than 1/8 of a teaspoon of Himalayan or sea salt, supports cellular hydration in a way plain water alone cannot. Sodium acts like the doorman who actually allows water to enter the cells of the body rather than rushing it through the kidneys. This is not a license to salt every meal heavily. It is a small morning microdose for cellular balance. Coffee deserves its own conversation because the timing of your first cup matters more than whether you drink it. Caffeine blocks adenosine receptors in the brain to make you feel alert, but it also stimulates adrenaline and constricts blood vessels. Drinking coffee within the first 30 to 45 minutes of waking stacks a caffeine-induced surge directly on top of the cortisol peak your body is already producing. You do not actually feel more alert, you simply feel more cardiovascular stress. The simple, evidence-based recommendation is to wait 60 to 90 minutes after waking before your first cup. Drink your water first. Do your breathing. Move gently. Then enjoy your coffee, and you will actually feel its lift more clearly. Movement matters, but so does intensity. There is a documented phenomenon called exercise-induced morning cardiac events, and it does not strike sedentary people. It strikes those who go straight from bed into intense exercise before their cardiovascular system has adjusted. A study in the European Heart Journal found that high-intensity exercise in the early morning carried a significantly higher risk of cardiac events than the same exercise performed later in the day. Begin every morning workout with 15 to 20 minutes of genuinely gentle movement, a slow walk, light stretching, easy yoga, anything that warms your cardiovascular system gradually rather than shocking it. After that warm-up, your system is far better prepared for higher intensity if you choose it. One of the simplest yet most powerful protections costs nothing. Step outside or stand near a sunny window within the first 30 minutes of waking. Natural morning light, even on a cloudy day, signals through your eyes to the master clock in your brain, regulating cortisol timing for the entire day. Sunlight on skin also triggers nitric oxide production, your body's natural blood pressure reducer, which dilates vessels and improves flow. Some researchers believe higher heart attack rates in northern latitudes during winter are partly explained by reduced sunlight and lower nitric oxide levels. Finally, the way you wake up matters. A loud, jarring alarm produces a measurably larger cortisol spike than a gentle, gradually rising alarm or a sunrise simulation light alarm. For anyone with cardiovascular risk factors, this difference is not trivial. Before we close, please know the warning signs. Many heart attacks are preceded by signals people miss. Unusual fatigue in the days before, a deep exhaustion that rest does not fix. Mild discomfort in the chest, jaw, left arm, or upper back that comes and goes. Unexpected shortness of breath during ordinary activity. A vague, persistent sense that something is simply not right. These are not minor inconveniences to push through. These are your heart asking for help, and the heart attack caught early is the heart attack that does not happen. So tomorrow morning, when your alarm sounds, give yourself 30 seconds of grace. Breathe. Rise slowly. Hydrate before anything else. Step into the light. Let your heart adjust before the world rushes in. If this video has helped you, please tap that like button, subscribe for more videos like this, and share it with someone you love who jumps out of bed every morning into pure chaos. Your share could genuinely save a life. Down in the comments, tell me which of these morning habits you are going to change first. Take good care of yourself, my friend, because your heart has been beating for you every single moment of your life without ever asking for anything in return. Give it the 30 seconds it deserves. I will see you in the next video.